Good morning. My name is David Shenz. I'm the Vice President for Operations at ERP Suites. I'm really excited to be joined by Sean Mead, who is our Head of Security.
Good morning, David. It's really good to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about phishing. So this is kind of a really, continues to be a very serious threat to many businesses. What does a threat actor do with the phishing, and what can they do with credentials? What type of credentials are they looking for? And kind of what is their next step once they get those credentials?
So the acquisition of credentials is still one of the biggest prizes that any threat actor can attain. Using phishing to do that, often the emails are, as I stated, meant to play off of standard activities. So it looks like one of our customers, hey, would you mind sending something back to me to confirm that I've got this particular value correct, or that I've got your products correct, whatever it may be. When we send something back, we've now confirmed that that email is alive, because that's probably been part of a spread campaign to where they've sent it to all kinds of people across different businesses, including and a lot of people possibly in the same business. They're after those credentials, because once we have credentials, they can start trying to test the waters and see if, for example, an external website has something that credential will allow them to enter. And so the phishing is often also accompanied not just by questions and, hey, would you reply back to me, but URLs that are in there that will basically say, hey, do you mind clicking this and looking at it, reviewing it? Please validate this, whatever the phrase may be, but that URL is actually going to, as soon as you go to it, the phishing is meant to catch the fish, and then once I've got it, now I can use that fish to catch a bigger fish. And part of that is to get someone to go to that URL, and they will try to then inject malware onto that machine, that person's account. They'll try and get their address book, depending on the person and how high up they are in the company. I mean, as you stated, you're a vice president. You have to worry about this stuff. If a URL comes into you and you click on it, they get a hold of your address book. You've got not only the employees of our company and the management of our company, but you also have higher levels in vendors, and that's what they're after. Is information is key. Once I've got some information, then I start playing.
So let's suppose then, I lose, I go to I fall for a fish, I click the link, and I put in my M365 credentials. What could happen then?
Yeah, that's the gold standard, shall we say, or platinum. So once we've gotten an email address and confirm that, that's great. Once we get other people's email addresses, that's fantastic. But man, if I can get your password along with that, then and especially depending on the position in the company. And by the way, it's not always just upper management. It can be people in finance. Oh, that's a real target right there. People in finance. Oh, I want to change my account that you're paying me, through which you're paying me. So if I've got both of those, a lot of people use M365 and it's attached to their Active Directory. So now I have your network entrance. And if there are not other factors involved, if there are not other security layers involved, I basically now own you and possibly everything that you own. So getting your credentials and getting that M365 password as well as username combination, that's absolute gold.
So that seems really scary, Sean. What are kind of some of the tools and techniques or kind of to protect against these type of phishing attacks?
Some of the technologies can be even some of the old standards, which are just, this looks like spam. This doesn't, we don't even know this vendor. Do we communicate with them? So there are lots of software packages out there, AI-based packages, other packages that look at everything that's going on, and they'll even pull stuff out that, hey, this is an unusual one. Do you want to look at it? They'll put banners on it. In the end, the most important is, of course, the end user, the person. But before we touch on that, so let's look at some of these other safety nets. So that's one. Another, and a big one, quite honestly, is two-factor authentication. Because even if I've got your username and password, and I try to get into, let's say, your VPN, If you have two-factor authentication set up, that username and password, that's a great thing to have, but now I'm being double-checked by something that you own. It really does come back to the old standard of something that you know and something that you own. And that combination's hard to get around, even for a good threat actor. So if two-factor authentication, I really can't say enough about the importance of that one. Out of all the others, we can have AI, we can have all of these other things watching the email, but that two-factor authentication is a great barrier on how to stop someone if they get that username and password combination.
And so I think the other piece that you touched on a little bit is also the user training. How do you educate users so that they know not to click on things that they shouldn't be, or how do they learn to identify a phishing attack themselves?
So now you're getting into the fun part of internal security, I'll put it that way. What we call phishing campaigns. So there are plenty of software packages out there. We even have one not only that we use, but we can manage for others and recommend to others. And when we use that, it creates these what we call campaigns. If it's a complex piece of software that you're using, as far as a phishing campaign software, then it should allow for specific types of attacks for different types of users. And it should have links in some and not in others. It should wind up, so for example, I get an email from you. One of the things that we might set up is, hey, this is David. I look, and it is your email address. And I look on there and it says, hey, I need this one piece of information from you. If you wouldn't mind just texting that to me or something of that nature. So there are a couple of hints in there. Number one, we have other ways to communicate. You and I use other programs for some of that. And number two, I know, coming to that end user, I know that you have my phone number, so you could text me straight up and ask me. Using our common sense is important, and what these phishing campaigns are about is seeing if we are actually reading the email, if we're paying attention to what's being sent there, instead of being automatons and, oh, there's a URL that says I should check this out, let me click that. The beauty of the phishing campaigns, of course, is that didn't go to a threat actor, that wound up coming to us. And then we get to say, hey, you shouldn't have clicked on that, and by the way, here's some nice training to go to.
That's great. So kind of from a security point of view then, when you run this phishing internal campaign, one is you kind of provide education to the end user to make sure that they kind of understand, what they should or should not be looking at in terms of emails, as well as you can actually test to see if they fall for it, so they can actually, get a real life simulation of phishing. And kind of the results of both those trainings and the email are both provided back to management to kind of tell them who needs additional training or who needs additional help.
Exactly. So we can give management reports on who on their staff wound up clicking on something. And we can also tell them this is what kind of an email this was. This one played to your employees' sympathies. This one actually used management's name and email address to try and get information that they would ask for in a different way. So the training is very important on that. We get the reports, like you said. We can then get management involved, have the reports out there, but that training, helping someone, it's not meant to, hey, we're glad we caught you on this. It's meant to be all right, so you made this mistake. This is the type of mistake you made. Now let's get a little bit more training on that type. Contrary to popular belief in some cases, IT security is not out to catch everyone. We're out there to try and train and protect the company.